Welcome to HMIS 102B Families, How to Complete a Universal Entry Assessment. I am your trainer, HMIS Program Specialist, Aaron Tarango. For the remainder of this webinar, we'll be working in the Client Point module within Service Point. This is the section of Service Point where you will enter new clients and access existing client records. We will go through step-by-step on how to correctly enter a family into your project or grant and complete the Universal Assessment as well as the Universal Exit Assessment. Please note that if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at the HMIS Help Desk via email at hmissupport@cir.org or by phone or text at 602-908-3605. Thank you, and let's get started. Once you log into the system, it will automatically take you to the homepage dashboard. If you work with multiple projects or grants, you will go to the right side of your screen to enter data as. Click the link and locate the project or grant you need to enter data into, and then click the green plus sign to the left side of the project, grant, or name. Right below Enter Data As, you have the Backdate module. This module will be used when entering historical data. For example, today is December 22nd, 2016. My client's date of project entry was on December 18th, 2016. I will click on the Backdate link and backdate to December 18th, 2016. Notice the timestamp will automatically populate for you. If you work overnight, please be mindful of the timestamp as it may affect reporting. Once I click Set Backdate, my banner will change to a bright yellow color and will remain this color while in backdate mode. Please note the Maricopa HMIS Data Quality Plan says that new client information must be entered within 5 business days. Next, I will go to the menu bar and click on the Client Point module. My first step will be to search for my client through the client search either by name or HMIS client ID number. For this example, my client will be Millie Rue. We will then fill out the name data quality field. Your options are full name reported, the client has reported their full name to you, partial street name or code name reported. This option is mostly used for outreach projects. Client doesn't know, the client does not know their name. Client refused to give you their name. Data not collected. For whatever reason, during this interview, this data was not collected. The last 3 options will be seen throughout the UDE assessment. Please keep in mind they are all considered missing data in reports when recorded. If your client identifies by 2 different names, you may put their second name in the text field box marked alias. If client does not know their social security number or refuses to give it to you, please leave the social security number text field box blank. If the client provided the last 4 of the social security number, that's okay. Just be sure to use the social security number data quality field to document what the client reported to you. Options available for social security data quality are full social security number reported, approximate or partial social security number reported. This can be used for clients who provide the last 4 of their social only. Client doesn't know, client refused, data not collected. The military veteran question should only be answered for anyone over the age of 18. If the client is under 18, please leave the answer default as select. Please never check the exact match box when searching for a client within the system. This can limit the client results and possibly lead to creating a duplicate client. If a duplicate client is created or found, contact the help desk and we can merge their profiles. Once all of this information is filled in, click Search. If your client already exists in the system, they will show up at the bottom, and please use that existing profile. My client does not exist in the system yet, so I will click Add New Client with this information and click OK. After clicking OK, the system will automatically take me to the Client Profile tab. Within the Client Profile tab, I can view all the information within the client record, and to the far right of the client record, I can upload a picture of my client and attach to my client's profile by clicking the Change button. Also on the Client Profile tab, you will find Client Demographics. This section will be blank the first time a client is entered into Service Point. Please do not ever use the Edit pencil icon to the left of Client Demographics to add or edit client information. This information will automatically fill in or change when an entry is created into your project through the EntryExit tab. AZ Client Notes is a tool in the system used by some, but not all agencies to create client progress notes. Client Notes is a generic notes section. Please do not use unless specified by your supervisor to do so. File Attachments is a tool that can be used to attach items such as birth certificates, identification cards, or other important documents to the client's profile. Incidents. This can be used to ban a client from your agency or certain areas within your facility. Staff will have the ability to view this banned information at all times. This is further discussed in the Case Management 200 series. Now scroll up. Other tabs that can be found in Client Information are Households. Agencies serving families will use this tab to either create new households or to update existing households. Agencies not serving families can skip this tab. The Entry-Exit tab captures when a client enters and exits a provider's project or grant. The Case Managers tab is where staff can assign themselves as a client's case manager electronically. You can learn more about this feature in the Case Management 200 training series. The Case Plan tab is where goals can be set for clients. Again, you can learn more about this feature in the Case Management 200 training series. The Measurements tab is where you may find additional measurement tools for collection of data like the Self-Sufficiency Matrix, the SPDAT, and the FSPDAT. Only approved users have access to this tab. Above the Measurements tab is Service Transactions. This is where all referrals and services can be recorded and viewed along with client shelter stays if your agency uses the Shelter Point module. You can learn more about this feature in the Case Management 201 and 202 training series. I will now go back to the client information to the left of Service Transactions and click on my Households tab. Before creating an entry into my project, I have to create a household. Since my head of household does not have an established household, I will click the Start New Household button, choose the household type from the drop-down list. Your options are couple, parent and friend, and child or children, couple with no child or children, extended family unit, foster parents or parent with child or children, grandparent or grandparents and child or children, non-custodial caregiver and with child or children, other, single parent with child or children, two parents with child or children. Please note here, couple, parent, and friend with child or children. This is to be used when the adults are not married and there are no biologically shared children. Two parents with child or children is to be used when the adults are married and there is at least one biologically shared child in the family. Also, if a household is already established, do not remove any family members from a household. Just exclude them from your entry into the project. Next, use the client search screen to look up other family members either by name or client ID number. Fill out the family member's name. Please note that if a family member's last name differs from the head of household, that's okay. You can change the last name to the appropriate last name of the family member. Continue by filling in the name data quality field, the social security number, social security number data quality, and in this case, our child is a minor, so we will leave the U.S. military veteran question as default select. Again, as a reminder, do not ever click the exact match button. Once all of our data is filled in, click Search. If the new household member is already in the system, choose them from the Client Results area by clicking the green plus sign. If the new household member is not already in the system, click Add New Client with this information and click Yes. The new household member's name should end up at the bottom of the screen under the Selected Client section, along with the original head of household. Repeat the steps above to find and add new household members until everyone in the family who is entering your project is listed under Selected Clients. Once you have added all household members, click Continue. To the household information page. You will then have to establish which household member is the head of household by using the drop-down and changing it from no to yes. Everyone else should be left as no, as every household member in HMIS can have only one head of household. Establish the relationships of other family members to the head of household. The head of household's relationship will always be self. Your options for other household member will be aunt, brother, cousin, daughter, daughter-in-law, father, father-in-law, foster daughter, foster father, foster mother, foster son, friend of family, granddaughter, grandfather, grandmother, grandson, husband, mother, mother-in-law, niece, other non-relative, other relative, self, significant other, sister, son, son-in-law, stepdaughter, stepfather, stepmother, stepson, uncle, unknown, and wife. Once all the information is complete, click Save and Exit. Now I will go over to the Entry Exit tab and enter the household into my project. Click on the Add Entry Exit tab. Next to Provider, make sure your agency or your project name is correct. If it's not correct, then you're not an Enter Data As. Please be sure to select all members of the household that are entering into your project at the top of this menu also. Your entry type will always be HUD. Please be sure your entry date is correct. If it's not correct, then you are not in you're not in backdate mode. Once all this information is verified, please click Save and Continue. Please note, if your project or grant has to complete any custom assessments, they will be located underneath the Select an Assessment tab. Otherwise, the Maricopa Universal Data Elements or the UDE assessment will open by default. Assessment questions. The first question is relationship to head of household. Please choose the appropriate designation depending on the family member you are completing the assessment for. This question is required for all clients. Your options are self, head of household's child, head of household's spouse or partner, head of household's other relation member, other relation to head of household, other non-relation member, data not collected. Date of birth. Enter the client's reported date of birth using a 4-year digit. If the client cannot give you a date of birth, ask their age and approximate the date of birth using 0101 for the month and day. Date of birth type. Specify what kind of date of birth was reported above. Was the full date of birth, approximate or partial date of birth reported? Client doesn't know, client refused, data not collected. Primary race. Specify from the list of 5 races which is the primary race of your client. This question has detailed information about how HUD defines these races if you hover over the question. Your options are American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Black or African American, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, white, client doesn't know, client refused, data not collected. The secondary race, this is optional. Specify from the list of 5 races which is secondary race of your client if they report one. If they do not report one, then leave this question as select. Do not duplicate the primary race. Ethnicity. Specify the ethnicity of your client, either Hispanic or non-Hispanic. If your client reports their race as Hispanic, put a primary race of white and an ethnicity of Hispanic. Gender. Specify the gender of your client. If they report something other than what is on the list of 4 options, then choose does not identify as male, female, or transgender. Your options are female, male, transgender male to female, transgender female to male, doesn't identify as male, female, or transgender, or data not collected. Does the client have a disabling condition? Choose yes or no for whether your client, adults and children, have reported a disability. There is additional information about HUD's definition of disability if you hover over the question. Please see your handout on documenting disabilities. If covered by AXIS, you may enter the client's AXIS number in this text field box here. Homeless primary reason. Specify the primary reason the client reports for their homelessness. Your options are aged out of foster care, client doesn't know, client not homeless, client refused, criminal activity, domestic violence, economic, evicted, family dispute or overcrowding, loss of job, medical condition, mental health, move to seek work, natural disaster or fire, release from jail or prison, relocated, substance abuse, trafficking or exploitation. Please note that client not homeless should only be used for diversion programs. Residence prior to project entry. Specify the type of residence or non-residence your client slept at last night. Your options are in homeless situation, place not meant for habitation, emergency shelter including hotel or motel paid for with emergency shelter voucher, safe haven, or interim housing. For the institutional situation, your options are foster care home or foster care group home, hospital or other residential non-psychiatric medical facility, jail, prison, or juvenile detention facility, long-term care facility or nursing home, psychiatric hospital or other psychiatric facility, substance abuse treatment facility or detox center. In transitional housing and permanent housing situation, your options are hotel or motel paid for without emergency shelter voucher, owned by client, no ongoing housing subsidy, owned by client with ongoing housing subsidy, permanent housing for formerly homeless persons, rental by client, no ongoing housing subsidy, rental by client with a VASH subsidy, rental by client with GPD TIP subsidy, rental by client with other ongoing housing subsidy, residential project or halfway house with no homeless criteria, staying or living in a family member's room, apartment, or house, staying or living in a friend's room, apartment, or house, transitional housing for homeless persons including homeless youth, client doesn't know, client refused, and data not collected. Stay in previous place. How long did they stay in the residence reported above? Your options are 1 night or less, 2 to 6 nights, 1 week or more but less than 1 month, 1 month or more but less than 90 days, 90 days or more but less than 1 year, 1 year or longer, client doesn't know, client refused, data not collected. Approximate date homelessness started. The date the most recent episode of homelessness began. Regardless of where they stayed last night, number of times the client has been on the streets, in emergency shelter, or safe haven in the past 3 years, including today. Your options are 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 or more times, client doesn't know, client refused, data not collected. Total number of months on the street, in emergency shelter, or safe haven in the past 3 years. How many months has the client been homeless in the past 3 years? Please remember, If your client is homeless one day in a calendar month, they are homeless that entire month. Your options are 1 month, this is the first month, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 months. More than 12 months. Client doesn't know, client refused, data not collected. Zip code of last permanent address. Last permanent address according to HUD is where the client resided for 90 days or more. A list of generic zip codes can be found by hovering over the zip code question. Client location. This refers to the Maricopa Continuum of Care code AZ-502. There is only one answer for this question. Please be sure to select it. Once all of this information is complete, you will then click Save at the bottom right-hand corner. Scroll up and switch to another household member by clicking on their name from the Household Members section on the left. The Maricopa UDE assessment will now open for the other household member. Please see your handout called HMIS Universal and Program Data Elements to see which question must be answered based on the client type, i.e. head of household, adult, or child. For this example, since my household member is the client's child, the only information I need to collect on the client's child within the assessment is relationship to head of household, date of birth type, primary race, ethnicity, gender, does the client have a disabling condition, and client location. After the information is complete, scroll down and click Save. You would then repeat these steps for each family member on your list. Once everyone's data is complete, the check marks by their name will turn green. We're not quite finished, so please do not click Save and Exit. Select the head of household's name from the Household section on the left. Then scroll back to the top of the page and locate the Universal Entry Assessment in the Select an Assessment section. Click on this assessment to switch from the Maricopa UDE assessment to the Universal Entry Assessment. The top section, Universal Data Elements, will be filled in from the previous assessment you completed. Scroll down to the second section labeled Program Data Elements and complete all questions. The Program Data Elements questions are total monthly income. Type in the client's total monthly income amount. If the client has no income, please put a 0 for total monthly income. Please note if the client has more than one source of income, please add them together and put the total in the specified text field. You would income from any source. Choose yes or no whether the client is currently receiving any form of income at entry into your project. You would then use the HUD verification link on the right. Answer yes or no to every source of income on the list. If the answer is yes to any, fill in additional information about the amount per month they receive. For this example, I will first click the radio button No at the top, and then I will choose Yes next to Earned Income. A monthly income box will pop up. List the amount of earned income in monthly amount. You will see that my start date and receiving income source auto-populate. Now click Save, then Save and Exit. When you finish listing sources of income, notice the HUD verification link should have a green check mark now. Non-cash benefit from any source. Choose yes or no whether the client is currently receiving any form of non-cash benefit at the entry into your project. Non-cash benefit subassessment will then use the HUD verification link on the right and answer yes or no to every source of the benefit on the list. For this example, we will say no using my radio button at the top. Then we'll click Save and Exit, and the HUD verification link should have a green check mark now. Covered by health insurance. Choose yes or no whether the client currently has any form of health insurance at entry into your project. Use the HUD verification link on the right. Answer yes or no to every source of health insurance on the list. Use the radio button at the top to click no and then yes next to Medicaid. Please keep in mind that access is considered Medicaid. In the disabilities section, use the HUD verification link on the right. If your client does not report any disabilities, you still have to complete the HUD verification by answering no to all disabilities. For this example, I will radio button no at the top, then find mental health and select yes. This takes us to the disability subassessment. If yes, expected to be of long, continued, and indefinite duration and substantially impairs ability to live independently. If yes, documentation of disability and severity on file. Please note that the two acceptable forms of documentation are note from a medical provider or an award letter from the Social Security Administration. Take note the next two questions say path only. Please only answer these questions if you are path funded. If yes, currently receiving services or treatment. Above condition going to be long term. Once you are done with these questions, click Save, then Save and Exit. We have a few more questions to answer. Choose from the drop-down list the highest level of education the client has attained. Your options are no schooling completed, nursery school to 4th grade, 5th grade or 6th grade, 7th grade or 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade no diploma, high school diploma, GED, post-secondary school, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree, doctorate degree, other graduate or professional degree, certificate of advanced learning or skilled artisan, client doesn't know, client refused, data not collected. Domestic violence, victim or survivor. Answer yes or no on whether the client has ever been or is currently a victim of domestic violence. Only answer the next two questions if you answered yes to the first domestic violence question. Once all of this information is complete, you will then click Save and Exit. This takes you back to your EntryExit tab. You will now see an entry for your family into your project. Back at the Client Profile tab, please take notice the client's demographic information automatically populated based off the answers you provided within the Maricopa UDE assessment. We will now say a couple of days have passed and my client is ready to be exited from my project. I'm going to say my client exited as of today's date, so I'll go ahead and click the red X to the right of the date we are currently backdated to get out of backdate mode. Once I'm in my client profile, I will then go to the EntryExit tab and click on the Edit Exit pencil icon to exit my client from my project. Please be sure to check mark each client that's leaving the project. Next, will be reason for leaving. Why did the client leave my project? Your options are completed program, criminal activity or violence, death, disagreement with rules or persons, diverted from homeless services, left for housing opportunity before completing program, needs could not be met, non-compliance with program, non-payment of rent, other, reached maximum time allowed, unknown, disappeared. Please take into account that diverted from homeless services cannot be used unless you are a coordinated entry project. Next would be destination. Where will my client be going? Your options are deceased, emergency shelter including hotel or motel paid for with emergency shelter voucher, foster care home or foster care group home, hospital or other residential non-psychiatric medical facility, hotel or motel paid for without emergency shelter voucher, jail, prison or juvenile detention facility, long-term care facility or nursing home, moved from one HOPWA funded project to a HOPWA permanent housing, moved from HOPWA funded project to HOPWA transitional housing, owned by client, no ongoing housing subsidy, owned by client with ongoing housing subsidy, permanent housing for formerly homeless persons, place not meant for habitation, psychiatric or other psychiatric facility, rental by client, no ongoing housing subsidy, rental by client with VASH subsidy, rental by client with GPD TIP subsidy, rental by client with other ongoing housing subsidy, residential project or halfway house with no homeless criteria, safe haven, staying or living with family permanent tenure, staying or living with family temporary tenure, staying or living with friends permanent tenure, staying or living with friends temporary tenure, substance abuse treatment facility or detox center, transitional housing for homeless persons including homeless youth, other, no exit interview completed, client doesn't know, client refused, data not collected. Please note that permanent tenure refers to a permanent stay, while temporary tenure refers to a short stay. Rental by client with other ongoing housing subsidy is considered rapid rehousing or Section 8 housing. Rental by client with VASH subsidy or rental by client with GPD TIP are veteran-specific projects. Once your edit-exit data is complete, click Save and Continue. Depending on your agency workflow, your exit assessment may be different. In most cases, the universal exit assessment will default, and you may have a few extra questions to answer. Please note that your program data elements should not change at this point unless there was an update. Once you are done, click Save and Continue. And this will take you to the EntryExit tab and you will see an exit date for your client. By following these steps and working through the system, you have completed HMIS 102B, How to Complete an Entry, Exit, and Full Assessment. You may now log out of the system at this point. As a reminder, here are some key points to keep in mind. According to the Maricopa HMIS Data Quality Plan, you must enter clients into the system within 5 business days. The U.S. military veteran question is initially answered on the client search screen, but it can also be answered on the client profile screen. When creating a household, you must go through the Households tab. There can only be one person designated as the head of household. When creating an entry, you must go through the EntryExit tab. Client demographic information should never be entered on the Client Demographic section on the Client Profile tab. HUD considers zip code of last permanent address to be 90 days or more. Remember these points when completing the length of time on streets in an emergency shelter or a safe haven section. When entering the date the client's current episode of homelessness started, you may use their current entry day into your project if they cannot remember the exact day. For example, if their entry date to your project was 10/3/2015, but they only remember their last episode of homelessness starting in May sometime, then you can put a start date of 5/3/2015. When documenting homelessness primary reason, only use client not homeless for diversion or homeless prevention. Add up the accumulated months of homelessness during the past 3 years, where the client was either living in the streets, in an emergency shelter, or safe haven. Any single day or part of a month counts as one full month for this question. If the client enters with no income, put a 0 in the total monthly income text field. In the state of Arizona, access is considered Medicaid. When creating an exit, be sure to go through the EntryExit tab and use the Edit Exit pencil icon to exit your family from your project. An interim housing is a housing situation in which a chronically homeless person has applied for permanent housing and has been accepted, but for which there is some other situation that prevents them from moving in immediately. To keep the client engaged, transitional housing is used until the client can move into their permanent housing. As a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at the HMIS help desk via email at hmissupport@cir.org or by phone or text at 602-908-3605. Here are some key points to keep in mind. According to the Maricopa HMIS Data Quality Plan, you must enter clients into the system within 5 business days. The U.S. military veteran question is initially answered on the client search screen, but it can also be answered on the client profile screen. When creating a household, you must go through the Households tab. There can only be one person designated as the head of household. When creating an entry, you must go through the EntryExit tab. Client demographic information should never be entered on the Client Demographic section on the Client Profile tab. HUD considers zip code of last permanent address to be 90 days or more. Remember these points when completing the length of time on streets in an emergency shelter or a safe haven section. When entering the date the client's current episode of homelessness started, you may use their current entry day into your project if they cannot remember the exact day. For example, if their entry date to your project was 10/3/2015, but they only remember their last episode of homelessness starting in May sometime, then you can put a start date of 5/3/2015. When documenting homelessness primary reason, only use client not homeless for diversion or homeless prevention. Add up the accumulated months of homelessness during the past 3 years, where the client was either living in the streets, in an emergency shelter, or safe haven. Any single day or part of a month counts as one full month for this question. If the client enters with no income, put a 0 in the total monthly income text field. In the state of Arizona, access is considered Medicaid. When creating an exit, be sure to go through the EntryExit tab and use the Edit Exit pencil icon to exit your family from your project. An interim housing is a housing situation in which a chronically homeless person has applied for permanent housing and has been accepted, but for which there is some other situation that prevents them from moving in immediately. To keep the client engaged, transitional housing is used until the client can move into their permanent housing. As a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at the HMIS help desk via email at hmissupport@cir.org or by phone or text at 602-908-3605.